There's a lot of handwork at the end of the process, and it is better to avoid the handwork where it matters, meaning taking not just the mold design into consideration, but also the production flow, because getting it right will minimize that final process, and that final process is a manual process and therefore subject to mistakes. Not everybody is as diligent as the gentleman we see today. So therefore, consider the production flow before you start even making your design. That's what I want to come out of. And I tell you, I have suffered badly from not taking this advice early. We had parts with critical edges on some fins, and that led to actually making a whole tool again in the end, because I didn't pay attention to this in the detail. So let's try to do it right from the beginning. Talk to us if you are interested to cooperate with us. Today, I want to take you through the process of aluminium die casting and what matters about your critical surfaces on the product, like in this part, and how it goes from the liquid aluminium to this part, and how you have to choose it to get it right. Despite having a perfect mold, if the production flow goes wrong, you may end up with deformations or defects that can turn your great product into a piece of garbage. I asked Mr. Chen how we go from this to that. And I'm very thankful that Mr. Chen will introduce this to us today. We go from the aluminium here into this hot pot. The aluminium is 670 degrees Celsius here. So we better not put our finger in there, because otherwise our finger will be gone. So let's not do that. 下一步是在哪里? So the aluminium will go from here into the tool, which is closed and under high pressure and high temperature. It will be held, and the mold will be opened, and the part will be taken out. And all those parameters are very important to get the thing right. What are those? This section of the part is actually not part of your product, but is needed to let the air out of your mold, to let it fully be occupied by the material, and this will be removed later on. But this is just necessary to avoid having air bubbles in the mold. So we see the arm taking the aluminium up and putting into the machine. The mold is closed and is injected. See, the mold is opening. The arm is going in. It takes the part out. The mold is cleaned with some air and liquid. And now the part is coming down. Do not touch it, it's hot. And then we have the ventilator here, where it will slowly cool down. With some section is removed with a very simple wooden tool. Okay, it's noisy here. So, and here you can see the leftover parts, which still may be a little warm when it's coming out. So you can see this all left over, but can be recycled. So don't worry, it's not waste. So here we have a punch mold, which allows us to remove the material entrance, because that's too hard to remove by hand. First optical inspection, and then putting it in a punch mold to remove the material entrance part. And another part of waste, which will be remelted later. And then we have a metal basket here, where the parts are stored and moved before they are finally inspected. The punch equipment is a better way than a hand tool to avoid burrs at the critical edges which are being removed, and therefore also to plan for such a fixture as part of the mold design that we should consider to avoid unwanted burrs that cause trouble later on. So now we would like to talk about one special process when it really matters for the services, and this is vacuum cooling. Vacuum cooling is using this equipment
这一台是真空机的设备。
This is a vacuum machine to allow the air that's in the tool to really be sucked out. That's why we have these pipes here to suck out the air. So here's the end of the takes the air out and therefore ensures that even thinner surfaces are fully covered with material and avoids the use of bubbles. But of course, this process is more expensive than a regular cool down process underneath.
之后的一些辅助武器。
It offers to make the product more precise than the regular cooling, but of course it's got a cost. So we would only employ this method when it's necessary based on design. The area from the air outlet is kind of contaminated. It's not as good material as the finished part. So from generally speaking, you can remelt the aluminium, but the full part is you cannot put only remelted aluminium in. You need to keep a ratio of new aluminium from the bar as well as some leftover material. You can remelt, but you cannot use only remelt parts. So that's why they have to control this for the quality process. So a typical ratio is 70% new stuff, 30% remelt. For not so critical parts, for higher quality parts, you may need 90% fresh aluminium and only 10% recycled parts. So that depends on the spec of the part to determine the effective ratio of remelting that's allowed. Okay, here we see a process to remove the mold line very nicely. So every piece is taken care of with an hydraulic polishing tool. Yes, work safety is very important here because there's some aluminium powder going around, so it's crucial to wear glasses, wear gloves, and even a mouth protection is good to avoid that to come into our mouth. So this means become part of our food.
这个有4个人。4个人在做这个抛修的。
So there are about 4 people in this company that are qualified to do this job. And after this process, there's still a sandblasting job that needs to be done. Sandblasting do you do in-house?
在内部。
Okay. Also the sandblasting process can be done in-house. Building a business for 28 years and still being able to drive a forklifter. That's what I call engagement for his customers. Because here in Taiwan, we are hands-on and everybody is involved to get things done. Thank you.
谢谢。